Okay, so it's about time to get started for the second panel. So after the legal, political and media aspects, we shall now turn to society and economy, political economy as well, and how this informs a number of other aspects, including identity, maybe some relationship to social movements as well. We'll have three papers. Each presenter will speak about 20 to 25 minutes, and after which, as this morning, we'll have a discussion. You know? So the first speaker is Stan Wong from the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, the Faculty of Applied Social Science. And Stan Wong has been writing on political economy, including state. Yes?
Thank you.
Come here? Louder.
Okay.
Louder, okay. Including state business relations and immigrant economics as well. The title of your paper is Why Do Low-Income Citizens Support the HKSAR Government? So the floor is yours.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Kabasan and Dr. Forrest for inviting me to give a talk in this wonderful conference. And I look forward to receiving your comments on my presentation. And today I would like to talk on a topic about the political economy in Hong Kong. Specifically, the title of my talk is Why Do Low-Income Citizens Support the Governments? So, in Hong Kong, particularly in recent years, things have changed quite dramatically and very rapidly, and sometimes so fast that something that was very popular, becomes no longer, is losing the faction. And for example, this term, real estate hegemony, 地产霸权, was once a vogue term in local politics. Lots of people talk about that and try to mobilize support behind that idea. Just give you how important that concept a few years back. In 2011, there was a public opinion survey conducted by the CHK, and in that survey they asked people about this concept. First of all, they found that about 85% of the respondents heard of that term, real estate hegemony. And then 66% believed the hegemony existed in Hong Kong is very politically relevant. And the whole idea of the real estate hegemony, especially for those who are not coming from Hong Kong, the background is, in Hong Kong, many people believe that the real estate developers, they are very politically powerful, and they sort of unite the economic power together with political power, because many of them, those members of those real estate elites, they got to sit on very important political institutions, such as the election committee, whose sole function is to select the chief executive. So people believe that one way or another, that these real estate elites dominates politics and then control, use their political power to extend their economic power. And people believe that they get rich from real estate investments, but then they reinvest the money in different markets, corner different markets, for example, supermarkets, telecommunications, so on and so forth. So, many people think that, at the end of the day, Hong Kong's economy is basically dominated by a few, developer families. Now, let's fast forward, 2016. I conducted a public opinion survey 1 week after the Legislative Council elections. And then I asked respondents one question, what do you think the causes behind Hong Kong's housing problem? And in that survey, somewhat surprising, at least to me, is that I found that only 14% of people chose greed of the real estate developers. And then another 19% pick collusion between governments and business. So altogether, if you consider both these two options are somewhat related to the concept of real estate hegemony, together they constitute only 33% of the respondents. So basically, in space of like 5 years or 6 years, like the real estate hegemony thesis, at least its popularity dropped by half, from 66% to 33%. So what causes this dramatic decline? Well, there are many reasons, and here I highlight two that I think are very relevant. One is that people, in the past few years, people realized that the so-called real estate elites, the real estate hegemony, was actually not that infallible. Okay, they're not that political powerful because two episodes. One is as you see in this picture, the Pork brothers. Okay, two of them were arrested for corruption charges, and then another tycoon, super rich Li Ka-shing, actually with domiciliation, okay, his enterprise away from Hong Kong. And so people can perceive that as a sort of vote with his feet. Okay, he's basically leaving Hong Kong, and so people started to realize that these tycoons or super rich, at the end of the day, they may not be the real boss. Behind Hong Kong, the real boss is everybody knows who it is. Okay, so this is one aspect that leads to people believe that this real estate hegemony is not that strong. And the second reason is, as I try to show for the rest of this presentation, is that actually in Hong Kong, the divide or the political cleavage is not so much along the line between 1% versus 99%. It's nothing like that. In fact, if you look very closely at the people's different social class, look at the political supports, you will be amazed that actually many low-income citizens actually support the government, and they are the staunch supporter of the government. And here I give you some evidence coming from two public opinion surveys that I have conducted. One is by the Asian Barometer survey, which was conducted in year 2012. Actually, I conducted two. The next one is 2016. But for today's presentations, I just present the wave 3 data. And another data I'm going to use is another public opinion survey known as Hong Kong Election Study. And I conducted this survey last year, okay, after the elections, of the Legislative Council elections. And these two surveys are somewhat dissimilar with each other, in terms of the survey mode, in terms of the year, of implementations. For example, the ABS, the Asian Barometer survey, was using the idea of face-to-face interviews, whereas the Hong Kong Election Study, we use internet survey. And the ABS was implemented by an organization called Policy 21. Okay, some of you may be familiar with this polling firm. And another is by YouGov. Okay, they have a branch in Hong Kong. And then the size of the observations is also different. Okay, but both of them are more than 1,000 respondents. And in these two surveys, I tried to classify respondents by their incomes. I use two ways to classify their income level. One is I divide them into two groups. Okay, the cut point is 25,000 Hong Kong dollars for the household incomes. And why I picked this number, because Hong Kong's median household income is 24,500. So I don't have that fine grain data. So I just pick a more convenient cut point. So 25,000. And another way to classify the income level is use three categories. and then there are two cutoff points, 15,000 and 40,000. Okay, and because these are two different surveys, so the cutoff points are slightly different. So but at the end of the day, I try to look at low-income citizens versus high-income citizens or middle-income citizens, and how their support toward the governments differ from each other. So here I'm showing you the first table, the income levels and evaluation of economic and political status quo. Interestingly, if you look at the low income row, okay, when it comes to economic evaluation, low income citizens are consistently holding more positive view of the economic evaluations. We ask them what they think about the economic situation now in Hong Kong. And second, institutional pride. Are you proud of political institutions in Hong Kong? Similarly, we see a very remarkable positive response from low-income citizens. Okay, and disapproval of administration. Okay, how much you don't like the governments. And here we don't see a significant difference between low-income versus high-income citizens. But then if you look at the middle-income citizens, we detect some remarkable and statistically significant difference. And trust of the governments. Again, low-income citizens have significantly higher trust in the governments compared to high-income group. Next, China pride. Are you proud of being Chinese citizens? Here again, low-income citizens, remarkably higher than high-income citizens. China's influence on Hong Kong, what do you think about that? Okay, positive means positive influence, negative means not that positive influence. Again, low-income citizens view the China influence predominantly more positively. And also Hong Kong pride, not significant difference. Identification with oppositions, in this data we don't see that much of difference. Now, the last table, which is from the Hong Kong election study data. When it comes to political participation, one particularly important indicator is who you would vote for, right? So in this data set, we ask who you vote for in the Legislative Council elections. As you can see, low-income citizens, they are significantly less likely to vote for the oppositions, which makes sense if you look, compare that results with the ABS data. Because they are more, they show higher approval with the governments, they feel greater pride in their Chinese identity and so on and so forth. So it's not surprising that they would be less likely to vote for the opposition. So why that is the case? Well, here I give you a very quick idea, okay? I know how much time do I have? 15 minutes. Okay, so I can elaborate a little bit more. All right, so why would low-income citizens in Hong Kong, they are so supportive of the political status quo and the governments? So I would like to argue that you have to understand the economic developments of Hong Kong after 1997. All right, in the 1980s and 1990s, what happened in Hong Kong was a massive outflows of capital to mainland China because many Hong Kong industrialists, capital owners, they took advantage of Hong Kong China's open door policy to try to invest factories in mainland China. So that witnessed a massive hollowing out of industrial activities here in Hong Kong. But after the 1990s, okay, what happened is China became not just a global powerhouse of manufacturing activities, but we also experienced a massive increase in their consumer activities. China became a significant consumer, okay, of world products. Okay, we observe a massive expansion of their consumer power. So, and Hong Kong in some way benefits from this expansion of the consumer power of China. And here I'm showing you some ideas why I say this is the case. Well, we all know that like in 2003, there was a CEPA thing, right? You know, the close partnership, close economic partnerships arrangement signed between, you know, like mainland China and Hong Kong. Basically, that gave like Hong Kong firms and, you know, like various like market participants easier access into the mainland markets. In return, you know, Hong Kong sort of like lowered the threshold for like mainland capital as well as like mainland tourists. And the whole idea of this CEPA thing is to increase the economic integration between the two sides. Despite the contents of CEPA, which consists of like manufacturing as well as services inputs, if you look at like, you know, the Hong Kong's economic activities by different sectors after CEPA, you will see the following. This is the picture. If you look at the manufacturing output as a share of GDP in Hong Kong, actually it has consistently been declining over time, okay, despite the introduction of CEPA. And then if you look at the service export to mainland China, well, it's not declining, but still it's flat, the middle line. And the only, at least like from this graph, the only dramatic and remarkable increase during this period is the share of mainland visitors to Hong Kong. Okay, you know, like in year 2000, it's like less than 30%, but now it's like, you know, it's like the number is humongous. So why that is the case? Well, as I said, like, you know, 2 minutes ago, because, you know, like China now is a huge consumer, you know, by the worldwide standard. Okay, because of its expansion of these consumer markets, you know, once you open the floodgates, you know, like Chinese people would come Hong Kong to shop and to, you know, sightseeing, you know, even like buy properties, you know, for their own use or for their vacation properties. So what happens like with this kind of like influx of mainland capital as well as like tourists and mainland, you know, populations? Well, here I'm showing you like data from two census, okay, the 2006 census and 2011 census. And here I'm showing you the number of people who are making like at different income brackets, okay? And you see 6K, you know, 10K, so on and so forth. That refers to how much money they make from their monthly employments, all right? So as you can see, in 2006, there are a significant number of people who are making less than 6K, all right? But then like 5 years later, the number of people who are making only 6K dropped quite significantly, okay? And why that is the case? Well, two forces. One is what I just told you, because the influx of mainland capital as well as tourists, you know, like sort of like, you know, create a boom in Hong Kong's like consumer markets, particularly those like consumer services sectors. And the second force is like in 2011, before the census was conducted, Hong Kong implemented the statutory minimum wage. That also increased, okay, significantly many low-income citizens' like livelihood. So from what I just said, as you can see that like there is a significant redistribution consequence as a result of like the booming services industry in Hong Kong, which was resulted from China's expansion of the consumer markets. And as in many economic like phenomenon, there are winners, but then there are losers. So under this kind of like economic developments, who are the losers? Well, who got relatively worse off? Here I'm showing you like some change in real wage by industry. Just like for sake of comparison, I also show you the data from Taiwan, okay? And as you can see, the upper panel, which is about Hong Kong, well, basically for most industries, the real wage change in this period, 2004 and 2015, is basically flat, okay? Not much change in real real income, except two industries. One is professional, okay, which is the light blue bar, okay, somewhere hidden in those horizontal lines, and that makes sense, okay. Who are those professional jobs, like basically lawyers, accountants, so on and so forth. And it's not surprising because they are the high skill, they are considered to be the high skill workers. And but the second category is like the upper bar, the green, those industry is what I call the personal industry. People who work in the beauty salons, or car mechanics, so on and so forth. They are predominantly employed in those consumer service industries. Okay, so these two professions, both services, but producer services as well as consumer services, both got benefits from this kind of developments. Whereas in Taiwan, you see the same period, basically you see very significant improvement across all industries. So in some sense, in Taiwan, their growth is more balanced. That benefits basically every industry. Whereas in Hong Kong, it's mainly the services industry and predominantly the consumer services. And another group, as I said, there are always some losers of this kind of redistributions. Another group that I would like to call your attention is young people. Here I'm showing you young people, their percentage change in the average monthly income. And here I'm showing you three groups of young people. Those who got a high school degree, and those who got post-secondary degree, and those who got university degree. And again, I'm showing you comparing Hong Kong and Taiwan, okay, just for the sake of comparison. So who is the winner in Hong Kong? Well, if you just look at these three groups, the winner is those who got high school degree, because the percentage change in monthly income is basically zero, no change at all. But that already set them as the winner. If you look at those post-secondary, okay, those who got the associate degree, it's a massive decline in terms of the average monthly income. Okay, it's almost more than 10% decline. And if you so happen you got a university degree, you're better than those who got associate degree. But then, interestingly, you're worse off than those who got high school degree because your average monthly income declined by about 2%. We saw similar pattern in Taiwan. Okay, those who got high school degree, they actually see their monthly income increase by 5%. Okay, and the other two groups both decline, especially those who got only post-secondary degree. So here I compare three groups of young people. What about young people versus not young people, which is the next graph. Here I'm showing you the monthly income of young workers with post-secondary education to all workers between 1997 and 2015. As you can see the red line, okay, before year 2000, the ratio is above 1. What does that mean? That means as long as you got a post-secondary degree before year 2000 or around that period, you are making more monthly income than an average worker in the labor markets. And I would call that as an education premium. But then that education premium rapidly declines and disappears, okay, after year 2000. Okay, and we are converging to the Taiwan level, which is about 0.7. So even though you got a post-secondary degree, but it doesn't set you immediately above the average workers, okay, in the labor markets. So why is the case? Well, here again, it's related to China's expansion of the consumer powers. Because of that, we saw a massive boom in Hong Kong's consumer markets, in consumer service industries. However, it so happened that the consumer service industry employed not that many of high-skilled workers. So even if you got a university degree, but we may observe some kind of like mismatch between of your skill level and what jobs are available on the markets. Okay. On the other hand, because of this boom in the services industry, we see lots of like retail sectors, lots of shopping malls being opened up, lots of restaurants, and that increased the demand for low-skilled workers, and that also pushed up their wage in the same period. All right. So here in my concluding remarks. So why there are so many low-income citizens support the governments? Well, here in my presentations, I'm presenting a sort of like a structural economic reason. Because the simple answer is they really get benefits, from the job and from the economic environments since the handover. And thanks to the expansion of the China's consumer markets, that have far-reaching distribution impacts in Hong Kong. And specifically, we see a boom in the consumer services sector. And many low-income citizens actually are beneficiary of this kind of economic developments. And another factor I would like to highlight is that if you are low-income citizens, but at the same time you occupy in one of those public rental housing estates, that also give you a lot of benefits, because that kind of public rental housing welfare helps many of these low-income citizens ward off the adverse impacts of escalating assets prices. Okay, so they don't have to face the runaway prices of the property markets. On the other hand, young people, highly educated, and many of them, they are excluded from this public rental housing, and at the same time, the booming of the consumer service sector doesn't really benefit them because of the education mismatch of the skill level and the jobs available in the labor markets. So that may explain, why young people these days are so angry. Where at the same time, we observe that many pro-establishment parties, they are hugely popular among low-income class in Hong Kong. Thank you.